Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us this Wednesday afternoon. This is Ashley Lazarian with KeyPoint Homes Group, a local real estate company here. And today we are going to be diving into home prices here in Georgia. So I'm sure you've heard the headlines everywhere. Prices are dropping. So we're going to discuss that today and see, are they really, or are those headlines again just there to terrify versus clarify? So I would love for you to jump into the chat. Tell me where you guys are listening in from. Put in some questions about what are some of the topics you want to hear. Sarah is going to be jumping in with us any minute now. So I would love for you guys to kind of let me know where you're from, questions that you might have. Oh, look. Hey, Sarah.
Hey, how are you?
Doing great. How are you?
I am good.
Awesome. I'm so happy you could join us today.
Yes, and I am from a different location today, but I am so excited to be here with you talking about everything moving to Georgia and home prices and what's going on this week.
I know. So we were just diving in, talking about obviously everybody is hearing those headlines about home prices are just plummeting. What do you think?
Yeah, so we are seeing home prices fall a tiny bit, and it also really depends on the price point that you are looking in. So, what we're seeing out there in the market right now, working with buyers, is that if you are looking in areas that are, or price points rather, that are between 250, 350, 400, those are still very competitive, and it's still hard to, get enough inventory there and get those under contract. So we're not kind of seeing those home prices fall as drastically as what we were seeing maybe in some other price points.
Right. So one of the things that I have noticed recently is a lot of people, I feel like last year we were kind of trying to price kind of ahead of the market because things just kept rising. And so when we were listing a house, we were trying to think of, okay, well, where's the market going? Where, historically we had always been just looking at what have comps sold for in the last couple of months. And that's where we were basing our pricing. So I've kind of been watching the market go back to what we traditionally were doing, where we're looking at what was and what is compared to where are we going. So I'm not really seeing a lot of prices falling. I'm more seeing stability and prices being where they should be compared to, oh gosh, where are we going to end up?
Yeah, that's such a good point. So when we were trying to price a home and 6 months ago in this market, we would say, okay, home prices are incredibly increasing. And so technically the comps are telling us your house is worth 500, but let's go ahead and price it at 525 because within the next week or so, it's going to be there and people are going to be willing to pay that. And so the prices that are falling right now, what we're seeing is that those real estate agents are still pricing it as if we were in a market 3 to 6 months ago. And so they're putting their home on the market and pricing it ahead of the market. And they're realizing, oh crap, all of these buyers that were in the market 6 months ago are not currently here. And so we need to make a price adjustment. And we need to bring it back down to that 500 price where it should have originally been.
Exactly. And I feel like inventory is still so scarcely low. We just do not have a lot of homes on the market. And I feel like some of that, and this is going to be kind of shooting myself in the foot here, I guess both of us really, because I think some of it is also with realtors, we have to get our mindset right across the board that, we can't price homes like we were pricing last year. And we need to make sure that we're presenting our clients and our sellers with the facts and giving them, the information of where we should be. Because if not, we're not doing them any favors.
You're right. We're not doing them any favors. And sellers, we often joke that sellers are usually 3 to 6 months behind the market as well. So they are still kind of the mindset that it's an amazing time to sell and that we're going to get multiple offers. We're going to be able to demand anything that we want.
Right.
And they're basing that based on what their neighbors did down the street 6 months ago. And they can't do that anymore. And so sometimes even, as agents, if we're giving that great advice, sometimes we're met with resistance with sellers that are like, no, but we want to try to get that 525 price. when
Absolutely.
we know that the house is worth really 500. And sometimes it does take sellers a while to catch up as well and be
Yeah.
more realistic about their price. So these home prices that we see that are falling are really sellers and real estate agents getting more realistic with what the home is actually worth and pricing it right.
I agree 100%. One of the things, we have a listing there in Swanee, and one of the things that we've had to have the discussion about is they kept panicking because it was, well, in order to get to where I want to go, I needed to get this price. I understand that 100%. But if you're having to list at a realistic today's market price, so is the home that you're looking at. And in their words, where I wanted to go. Those homes have also come to a realistic, more stabilized market price as well. So you're not having to overprice a list because that home is now 100,000 over also. Everybody across the market is coming to those more stable pricing.
Yeah, completely. And so it is a very welcome market that we are entering into, and it's something that we are excited about. And so, speaking of being excited about it, we're excited to spend this time with y'all today here on the live stream. And if you're watching, please leave us a comment. Let us know where you're watching from. We're excited to have you with us. And of course, if you have any questions in the meantime, make sure you ask us those questions as well. So, as we're starting to see these home prices fall or become more in line and be more realistic, where do you feel like the best place to buy a home is right now? Where do you feel like buyers are able to have those negotiations and have a little bit more options?
So that's a great question. I feel like Flowery Branch location, Buford, those are definitely two areas that, a lot of people are going to. Alpharetta is still one of those areas that is always highly sought after and is going to be higher priced. However, I will say that across the board, we are really seeing affordability come back around, which is exciting because there's a lot of first time home buyers that, it was heartbreaking the last couple of years. There were people that just could not get into a home. And, I know a lot of people have said it was just such a frustrating time for them. And that's never what we want in this, job in this field. Our job is to try and help people get into a home. So when we're seeing people not be able to do that, it's just as frustrating for us. And so one of the things, I don't know, I know you and I were talking about this a little bit earlier, but one of the things that I have noticed, and I was actually in a mastermind yesterday with some of the other top agents in our area, and Open Door is something that I definitely be watching because we all know that they kind of took a lot of market share the last couple of years and we were at the top of the market. So we are definitely seeing some of their properties come back on. And we've been able to do more negotiating with those properties than we ever have.
Yeah, so for those of you that are watching in different markets that may not have Open Door, we have Mark Schroeder watching us from Liberty Hill, Texas. Thanks for watching us. It's just northwest of Austin. And so I'm sure Open Door is in the Austin market, but Open Door is an iBuyer program that buys houses directly from sellers, and then they turn around and relist those houses often at trying to have a steep profit. Typically, they will come in and do some repairs in that house. Typically, what we see is new paint, new carpet. Really, we as real estate agents sometimes call it kind of like lipstick on a pig. And because they don't always do the best. And what we often find is that negotiating with them over the past couple of years, like Ashley knows, has been very, very difficult. And they, it's like negotiating with a corporation because they are a corporation that owns this house. So to see them come around and be more realistic with the pricing of their homes and being able to negotiate more on their homes is a huge win.
It is. It really is. Because a lot of times when we were trying to negotiate with them, it was like pulling teeth. You couldn't get a response from anybody, and they basically were take it or leave it. If you want it, take it. And so the fact that we have been able to open up to negotiations again, actually getting some headway with those negotiations has been really exciting.
It is exciting. So Flowery Branch and Buford are some of your top areas. I know that we have a lot of great inventory and options as far as affordability, kind of like in our more rural areas. When we're
Mhm.
looking at Commerce and Winder, Dawsonville area, whenever you're looking kind of like more on the outskirts of the suburbs of Atlanta. And those are still some really great areas to get into and buy as well. And there's a lot of development going on in these areas, which long term is going to be great for home prices as well.
I don't know about you, Sarah. Tell me your opinion on this. So I feel like it's kind of funny because I was born and raised in Duluth, moved to Swanee, Flowery Branch. I've lived in all of those locations. So I've known all of these areas, but my grandparents lived up in Dawsonville. And 30 years ago when they lived there, I thought, dear God, I've driven to the middle of nowhere. Like there's nothing here. So,
Right.
but as they lived there, I watched the outlet malls be built, and then restaurants come in, shopping come in. And now I go up there and like I'm traveling from Swanee to Dawsonville to go shopping because they
Yeah.
have the Restoration Hardware outlet, Pottery Barn outlet, West Elm outlet, like all of these shopping. And then they have every restaurant known to man. So I feel like Dawsonville is one of those locations that is missed. And so many times when people are searching, what do you think?
Yeah, it's been surprising to me. So even in the short time that we've been here, we've lived here 7 years now. And I remember when we first moved here, I would only go over to Dawsonville to go to the outlets. Love a good bargain.
Oh, yeah.
And now that we live in Gainesville, we have found ourselves going over and driving to Dawsonville. It's about a 15-minute drive away for us. And we go over there to eat now. And every time we go over there, it's just like you said, it's like more and more things just keep popping up. And it's almost become like, how did Dawsonville get bigger and better than Gainesville, where we live? And sometimes we feel like they have more things over there than what we do. So yeah, I definitely feel that same way. And it's funny that uh, you what you used to think is going out to the sticks or the boonies,
Right.
as we say down in South Georgia. Those are now really growing populated areas that have become very, very popular for families and people to seek out and live. And we've had a lot more clients choose Dawsonville, and it is really kind of like a hidden gem, I feel
It
like.
is.
There's a really great uh, golf course there, Chastity on Lanier. It has a fantastic neighborhood there that's right on Lake Lanier, and so you have a lot of lake homes that are on the lake there, and you've got the golf course, and then you're just 5 minutes away from all of that great shopping and restaurants.
Andrew, a stone's throw from the wineries in Dahlonega.
Yeah,
Just
that is
saying.
a great point. There's a great new restaurant there called Freddy's.
Okay.
I've talked about it before, but it's like a custard hamburger place,
Yes.
and it
There's
is
one in Swanee.
okay. Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we've got to check it out because it's so good. And so we embarrassingly have driven from Gainesville to Dawsonville just to go eat at a fast food restaurant.
I mean, I don't think that's embarrassing. My husband absolutely loves them, but he's a burger guy. So there's one in Swanee right there off of Peachtree Industrial,
Okay.
Sugarloaf Parkway.
Yeah, you got to try it out. It's great hamburgers, kind of like a Shake Shack burger, but
Yes,
better.
for sure.
It's possible.
Well, Anthony Banks left us a comment. Let's pull Anthony. Anthony, I love you. You're just here every week, and Anthony is so much fun to talk to. He said, friends, question for you both. For some homes that have an old listing age, 60 to 90 days, from a buyer's perspective, should they negotiate a decrease in the list price or ask for a rate buy down? That is a fantastic question. And I'm sure depending on who you ask, there's going to be different, answers. Sarah, what do you think?
So both are really great options. And the conversation that I would have with you as a potential buyer is, how long are you going to be in this house? And working with the lender to figure out which is going to have the most immediate impact savings on your monthly payment. So oftentimes, especially right now, it's that rate buy down that's going to give you the most immediate impact in your actual monthly payment. So that rate buy down could save you, $50 to $100 a month on your mortgage payment, whereas negotiating a reduction of the price of the house by $10,000 may only save you, $25, $30 on your mortgage payment. So definitely kind of weighing the pros and cons there. Obviously, if you're paying cash, you want that price reduction of the house. Rate buy down obviously has no bearing on it. Obviously, but but those are some of the things and factors that I would walk you through and have a lender kind of run those numbers so that we're comparing apples to apples to see which is going to save you the best or the most amount of money. But that is a really, really great negotiating point, and something that is good to keep in mind is that we have two really great options right now. Negotiating a reduction of the price of the house, negotiating closing costs being paid by the seller, and negotiating that rate buy down.
Right. And I think that, a lot of times when we're talking with people and one of their questions is, when should I talk to a lender? And I think sometimes people kind of give pushback because when they're like, well, I'm 6 months out, I'm a year out, I shouldn't talk to a lender quite yet. This is one of those perfect scenarios of why you should go ahead and start the discussion with a lender ahead of time, in my opinion, anyways, because the lender is not there to push you into buying a home. The lender is there to really have those conversations so that when you are ready to buy a home, you have all of your cards and you know what hand you want to lay down. They are able to kind of, like you said, play with those numbers, look at what's going to be best for you. You nailed it when you said, are you going to be in the home for a long time? Or is this kind of, we're here for 2 or 3 years and then we're going to turn around? Because that really depends on how much money you should put down and the rate buy down. All of those things factor in. It's not just a one size fits all. You really have to look at, your long-term goals.
And even, something that's becoming more popular that was very popular 10 years ago is adjustable rate mortgages. Mm-hmm. So if you are only going to be in a house for a couple of years, an adjustable rate mortgage may be the perfect solution for you, something that's going to adjust in 5-7 years, and then use that money that you were going to negotiate off the price of the house, either a price reduction and or having the seller pay a lot of the closing costs so that you're still keeping a lot of cash on you.
Right.
One of the things my husband and I realized before we moved here 7 years ago was that we had moved every 3 years. And so we did an adjustable rate mortgage on the purchase of our last house where we were prior to moving here, because we knew, like, our history, his job takes us somewhere different every 3 to 5 years.
Right.
So that is something that, a great lender and someone, lenders that we are going to recommend you to, they're going to have those detailed conversations with you and really strategize with you to make sure that we're putting you in the very, very best situation possible.
I agree. We got another comment. Maximo Hernandez, greetings from New York City. My wife and I are retiring in 6 months and we are looking to relocate somewhere near Atlanta. Should we buy a house ASAP or wait a few more months? We often hear this. I think it really depends on what you are looking for. I personally am one of those people. I completely understand wanting to get to a new area and kind of check it out, but interest rates are looking like they will continue to increase for a little while. Home prices are not really scheduled to decrease. So I'm kind of looking at the math, and I think I would probably want to go ahead and get into something now while rates are steady and home prices are at a good value. And then as rates increase, I'm not taking that increase. And as home values increase, do I think that they're going to rise substantially over the next year? I don't. I think we took, kind of our rises the past couple of years, but 1% is a good return. 2% is still a good return compared to nothing at all. Sarah, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. Obviously, if you're paying cash, that takes out the equation of factoring in interest rates. And most people do end up having a loan. What we know is that home prices continue to appreciate. At the beginning of the year, we were still expecting home prices to continue to appreciate through this year and through the next several years. And regardless of the headlines, when you dig into the actual facts and you look at what the experts are predicting, no one is saying that the actual home prices or home values are decreasing. So we're still seeing year-over-year annual appreciation, and we're still expected to see that over the next couple of years. So like you said, this home price is not going to get any cheaper. And so definitely if you're getting a mortgage and you have the flexibility and the ability to go ahead and do it now, I would definitely go ahead and start my search and, see what comes up and see if I can find that perfect home now.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree. We have somebody that I was talking with earlier that was talking about, getting here and renting, and they were thinking about renting versus buying, but then, 100% interest to somebody else's pocket, or 5%, 6% interest to your own pocket. Mathematically, I think that pretty much answers the question of renting versus buying. So Maximo, I hope that kind of helps you. We definitely would love to talk with you further. And, obviously we can kind of talk through that and see what you think would work best for your family, because ultimately that's what you have to do. But reach out to us individually, and, let's just have a conversation, and hopefully you guys will be able to, get down here and get into something great.
Yeah, we're so excited to answer your questions. So if you're watching us, please make sure to leave us a comment, tell us where you're watching from, and let us answer any questions that you may have about the Georgia real estate market, or anywhere for that matter. We would love to help and answer your questions. So speaking of having that conversation,
Mm-hmm.
I know that you mentioned earlier that people should reach out to a lender much sooner than what they can. Is there ever a time where it's too soon to reach out to the lender?
In my personal opinion, no, because let's say that you want to buy a home, but your credit is shot, or you had a foreclosure 10 years ago, or you honestly haven't checked your credit in 20 years. You have no idea what to expect. Talking to a lender now can educate you on where your standing is with your credit. If it is in a bad, standing, they can kind of give you guidance on the things that would best serve you to boost that credit up. It might be paying some things off. It might be consolidating things. You may not need to close accounts that you think you do. And then when you close them, you end up not having any type of revolving credit to, help generate that positive credit. So I definitely think that it's never too early to talk to a lender, because they're kind of there to counsel you into getting ready to make that purchase. Because for most people, a home is going to be the largest investment of their entire lives. And so you want to make sure that you're going into it with a clear head.
We got a question from Warren. He said that they sold their home in Florida. They now live in Georgia and are closing on a new construction home in October. Is it realistic to expect to refinance a home in a year, hoping for lower interest rates?
That's a good question. So thanks to Dr. C, Colette Gradzicki. She's one of the amazing agents on our team. We absolutely adore her. If y'all have ever met Colette, she is a hoot and holler to be around. So Warren, welcome to Georgia. Is it realistic to expect to refinance in a year with lower interest rates? I think we're all hopeful that it is. I think right now the Fed is just really working to get spending in line. And one of those items on their ballot is real estate. And so their way of doing that is to correct the spending with interest rates going up. If you look at history, the Feds, in my opinion, have always kind of overshot. And so they'll kind of overdo, and they'll realize, okay, we're where we need to be. And then they'll kind of back off a little bit. And so that's when it is a good time to go ahead and take advantage of when they kind of back off and course correct, because they see that, okay, we're right in line with where we should be. And so they back off. And then that's when you can go ahead and talk to your lender about going ahead and getting that refinance in place.
Yeah. And so we always, there's been a saying that you've seen become popular on Facebook or with real estate agents. It's, marry the house, date the rate. So, you can always refinance if home prices fall, and you're always going to be happy that you got the house when you did, because that home value of that house, that home price is going to continue to increase. And so, yes, what goes up must come down. And we just have to also keep in mind that historically we are still at well below historical highs or average home interest rate prices. So even though we're looking at around 6% right now, 6.5%, that's still well below the average historically of 8%.
So it's funny you bring that up, because I was reading an article the other day that actually Ken Posick had posted, and I read the article. It was actually from 1981. And reading the article, it was absolutely fascinating, because, that's 40 years ago. And if you read the article, it basically read as if it were today's market. I mean, the exact same thing. The only change was obviously the prices of the homes and then that interest rate. So in the article, there was a person that was talking about they were a buyer and they were so fortunate enough that they were able to take on the seller's current rate at 10.5%. And they were super excited that they were able to take on that rate because current rates were at 16. So they got a steaming deal at 10.5%. And I thought, dear God. But that's what interest rates, there were many, many times, one of our coaches here, Brian Fair, in the mastermind yesterday was talking about for many years in his career back in the 80s and 90s, it was a solid 15, 16% on a regular basis. And so the fact that we're at 5 and 6%, I'll be honest, I've been doing this for 17 years. You and I together are over 30 years. I've never seen rates go below 4.5. I don't know that we'll ever see 2 or 3% again.
Yeah, for sure. And mentioned that article that you sent me. What was funny is they were talking about how the housing market has become totally unaffordable, and there was an affordability crisis in America. And this was back in 1981, and the average price of a home back then was $70,000.
Right.
So $70,000, and it just goes to show you that yes, real estate, everything is cyclical. And that article could have been written today had you have just taken out that $70,000 average home price and replaced it with, whatever the average is today.
Yeah. It's funny because somebody the other day was talking about that real estate is like a clock and that it is eventually going to hit every one of those same, points again in time. And if you look back at history, it really is like that. And it feels like we're in 1981 all over again. But I wish that I could go back into time and buy one of those $70,000 houses, even if I was a little bit bitter about it in 1981, because to think of what you could buy then and now the equity that you could have gained, it just goes to show you that real estate is one of those things that long-term, play the field for long-term, is always one of those things where you are going to get a return on your investment. Even the people that went through 2008, where home prices were, dropping like we had never seen, the ones that stuck it out got all of their money back and then some. All of the prices came back and then continued to rise.
Yeah, 100%. So, so definitely if you're on the fence about buying, obviously make the decision that's the best for you and your family, and to just know that this is something that we are expecting home prices to continue to increase. I know there's a lot of fear mongering out there in the headlines that just say that the sky is falling and the real estate market is crashing. And, what we see boots on the ground, what we see in the data of what we're doing day in and day out across the metro Atlanta area and looking at across the United States, we're just simply not seeing that. And a lot of the headlines are just very sensationalized to get you to click and read them.
Right. Right. I agree. And quite frankly, it has been such a better experience for clients right now, being able to go and look at them and discuss it with each other and then negotiate with the sellers. It's just a better experience for everybody involved.
Yeah. Amit has a really great question. Unfinished basement versus larger lot size versus larger total square footage area. Which one of these criteria is a good choice to make? Any disadvantage of having an unfinished basement?
I don't see any disadvantage to having an unfinished basement. Unfinished basement just kind of leaves it wide open to make it what you want it to be. A lot of times basements are that area that people put, what they envision, and it may not be what you envision. So having an unfinished basement kind of leaves it open to interpretation, in my opinion. Obviously, having a finished basement gives you additional square footage. So if you have an unfinished basement when you purchased, now when you go to sell, you have additional square footage that you're able, to market to potential buyers. And I've always seen a great return on your investment when you finish out the basement. Now, unfinished basement versus larger lot versus larger total square footage, that's really a hard one to answer because I really think it's what is more important to you. A lot of people are wanting larger lot sizes these days. That comes with a little bit of baggage because you're not going to get a brand new home on a larger lot these days unless you're going in the higher price points, because land is so scarce, it's more expensive. The newer homes that the builders are using or are building on are going to be smaller lots. So if you want that larger lot, which a lot of people do, you're going to be looking at either going into a higher price point, or you're going to be looking at a resale, an older home, maybe from the 80s or 90s. So I really think that there's not a great way to answer that question. It's what is most important to you and your family.
Yeah, and I would say value-wise, an appraiser is going to probably value that larger total square footage area, more so than assuming that it's finished square footage area. That appraiser is going to give that more value. And just like Ashley said, it's incredibly hard to get all three of those on a large lot today unless you are spending north of 600,000 in this area, depending upon the area. And depending upon how big of a lot size you're talking about. One thing just to keep in mind, though, about finishing basements is that an appraiser is always going to value that finished square footage a little bit less than what your main level living is or your main house level living is. And so some of the things that we see mistakes of sellers or homeowners make is that they put a lot of money into these basements, finishing them out, because you have this blank canvas and you can do everything, and you can make like the
theater rooms.
coolest, man cave down there. And yet at the end of the day, it's only going to be worth so much money because of how appraisers look at that. So you don't want to go overboard in finishing out a basement.
Unless you just absolutely know that this is for your enjoyment and you're going to sit down here in your man cave and absolutely enjoy it, and you're not worried about your return on investment.
Yeah. I think there's a few more questions in the comment. Ashley, I'm going to let you wrap those up. I have a commitment that I have to run to, but it was so great seeing everybody this week.
Absolutely. We'll see you next time, Sarah.
Bye.
So Warren, speaking of long-term investing, is it a good idea to start small with an investment property like an apartment before trying to buy a townhouse or house? I have a couple of different points on this. So one of the things with investing, you will, I don't know if you follow Bigger Pockets, but they are a podcast. They also have a website. I absolutely love them. They talk about everything when it comes to investing and different ways to invest. But one of the best return on investments is going to be multifamily. So that could be a row of townhomes, or it could be apartments, condos, anything like that, where you have multiple units within one. So, again, that row of townhomes where you've got 4 townhomes, that's going to give you the best return on investment. I don't think that there really is a wrong type of investment. You just have to be prepared to make sure that you're putting the money aside. So that way, when something comes up, you're not being caught off guard by the AC went out and I need $6,000 right now to fix this. The other thing that a lot of people do not keep in mind is going to be the management company. So unless you're planning to manage this on your own, then you definitely want to make sure that you have a management company that is taking that on, because otherwise you're getting those calls every time something goes wrong or every time somebody needs something. Having a management company can really eliminate some of the stresses that you hear a lot of landlords talk about when it comes to their renters. Different companies are going to charge different things, but most of the time you can kind of count on about 10% going to a management company. But again, they take care of all of that for you so that you're not having to be the person that is meeting with the tenant. There's a lot of different options. Again, right now, going back to Open Door, we are seeing a lot of those homes selling for at market value, or even maybe a little bit less right now, because Open Door is having to unload some of the properties that they bought the past couple of years because they were just kind of buying everything up. They were one of the players that was in the game that was taking up a lot of the first-time home buyer options. And so I'm a little bit excited to see those properties coming back on the market. And I can't say that I'm sad that they're right at market value and having opportunities to negotiate, because we had a lot of first-time buyers the past couple of years that just haven't had a chance to be able to get into the market. Um, let's see, we have another question. Do you have top 3 areas to purchase for families? That's a great question. It really depends on what is important to you. So one of the top rated over year, if you Google it, one of the top family places is going to be Swanee, Georgia. Outside of that, we also have Buford, Georgia. They have one of the top rated schools with Buford City High Schools. And then also is going to be Alpharetta, Georgia. Now, Alpharetta, as we've talked about, comes with a hefty price tag. So it really just depends on what is most important to you. All of the cities that we're talking about are within 15 to 20 minutes of each other. So a lot of times when we have people come in to visit, maybe they're going to be doing an exploring weekend. They're going to just be coming and checking out some of those different areas to see what feels best for them. And in that, if you reach out to us ahead of time and say, hey, we're going to be flying out this weekend or next weekend, and we just really want to check out. We're not looking to buy right now. We just are looking to check things out. If you let us know ahead of time, we are more than happy to put together some points for you to put into your GPS. We do this for people all the time because obviously you need to explore where you're going to be moving. We have had many people that have bought sight unseen, and thank goodness they absolutely adore it when they get here. But we are more than happy to help you kind of with your pre-planning, if you will. We can give you some parks, some restaurants, some stores, specific neighborhoods. If you kind of tell us, hey, this is what I'm looking for in a home or in a neighborhood, we can absolutely give you some points to put into your GPS. And that way, when you get here, you're not kind of wandering aimlessly. You have a direction and kind of a map to follow, if you will. So if you guys have any other questions, please definitely put them into the chat. We want to make sure that we are answering all of your questions when it comes to living in Georgia or moving to Georgia. We definitely want to know, where are you guys watching us from? We have realized that people are all over the country tuning in. I would love to hear about what is going on in your market as well. I know, Anthony, you and I were talking the other day about what the feds are doing and what we're going to be seeing, and kind of what that looks like as far as you getting ready to put your home on the market. Mark, I know you said that your home is actively on the market. You and I have been kind of talking back and forth. So definitely let us know where you guys are tuning in from, what questions you might have. We want to make sure that we get all of those things answered. So if you guys want, I will go ahead and drop that article in the chat later on today about the 1981 versus today. It's ironic that it's 40 years later. And I really do feel like when I was reading that article, I was seeing it all over again. But tuning into seeing that 10% versus 16%, and now we're looking at 5% versus 6%, was definitely kind of a wake-up call for me, because 40 years ago, I was just being born. I wasn't buying real estate, although I wish I was, because man, the equity I would have right now, that would be absolutely amazing. So some of the things that we've been seeing recently that I'm really personally excited about is being able to get those contingencies in place again. So, for the last couple of years, you were really having a hard time getting contingencies for a home inspection, contingencies for an appraisal, any of those things. We were having to waive those left and right. And as a buyer, that is really, really scary, because when you waive an appraisal, that's basically you saying, no matter what, I'm agreeing to buy this home. No matter what the price comes in at, I'm agreeing to buy it. And in some circumstances, that's you coming out of pocket with $50,000, $100,000. That is a lot of cash to be coming out of pocket with. And so not having that appraisal in place, you were just kind of risking it. And so now the fact that we're able to get these contingencies back, we're getting home inspections completed, we're getting these appraisals back to protect your money is really important when buying a home. And then obviously, if you're on the flip side and you're looking at selling a property, when you're selling a property, most of the time you're going to be buying a property. And so you have to kind of look at that and think on both sides. If the property or the price on my property has stabilized and we are really listing at market value, so will the property that I'm looking to purchase be that same way. So I would encourage you, if you've been on the fence about selling, go ahead and dig in a little bit deeper or reach out to us. Let us come out, give you, an equity analysis of really and truly what are you looking at after the last 2 years of equity gains? And then where are you looking to go and what are those home prices looking at right now? Because if you've been watching prices for the last 2 years, thinking of where you wanted to go, you're thinking, dear God, that's completely out of my reach now. But a lot of things have really stabilized. And so something that you were aspiring to go to may very realistically be in your reach now. So that's one of those things. Definitely reach out to us and let us just kind of do some digging and help you on that side of things. It looks like we're going to wrap up today, you guys. If there's anything that we didn't cover, or maybe you want to have a topic on, we would absolutely love if you would email us or drop it in the chat. We always want to make sure that we are covering everything that you want to hear, because that is what these live streams and YouTube videos are for, to educate you. So we would love to hear from you. Give us some content that you think is important, that you want to hear and go over. Always join us at 6 p.m. every Wednesday. Sarah, I, or both of us are online to make sure that we're helping you understand and interpret the market. So until next week, guys, I'll see you then.